I wanted to respond to the idea of uncertainty, which was something that came out of the conference for me, and something that I struggle with, and I think as a human race we struggle with this, the certainty of climate change and yet the uncertainty of what that actually means to us as individuals and communities. So I kept a blog for 2 months where I talked to, I used rain as a sort of image or theme to kind of knit my stories together. And I spent 2 months talking to cyclists, children, architects, scientists about uncertainty and about rain, which was fun. I did that for 2 months, and then I sat down and tried and did write a sequence of 4 short stories. And I'm going to just read from the end of the final story. So the kind of overarching piece is called Amber Warning, and this story is called It Is Likely to Remain Unsettled. And it's starts with a Romanian scientist called Anton, who's got a job in the UK, but before he reaches his job in the UK, he's sent on it's called a field campaign, so sending up balloons to measure weather data. So he is currently in a field above Aberystwyth, setting off balloons. He's left behind his parents and a girlfriend called Karina, and he's just met a walker called Natalie. So this starts with Natalie speaking. And what kind of data do you get? The balloon bucked against his stomach. He turned off the valve and eased the plastic free. Temperature, pressure, humidity, velocity. Wind velocity. All the way up. Exactly. Why? Anton checked the radio sonde was securely attached. He looked out over the town towards the white breakers drawing lines across the sea and the distant rain starting to blur the hills around them. We need to know what's happening, he said. We can work out how things operate, and then we can predict how things will change. You're a fortune teller, she laughed. Anton swallowed back his irritation. We collect data, we make models, we test the models. You guess. Not guess. You make an educated guess. What will happen to us, Karina had asked him, the two of them lying in bed together, her tracing a finger over his chest. What he should have said was, we're over. I'm moving on. The weight of evidence suggests I'm not coming back. Instead, he put his palm against her cheek and said, I don't know. I almost didn't come, he said to the woman, Natalie. Sorry, she frowned. To here, to the UK. He had stood in the airport with his suitcase and watched the digital clock on the departure board click through its numbers. He wanted this, he told himself. He had worked for this, planned for this, fought for this. But he stood and watched the departure time get closer and closer and thought that he was risking everything for something he might not like, that might not work out. I almost missed my flight, he said. God, I always do that. My dad calls me Little Miss Last Minute. He'd run in the end, his shoes squeaking against the polished airport floor, arrived at the gate sweating and out of breath and almost too late to board. I'm not very good with not knowing what will happen, he said, and then pressed his mouth shut because he hadn't meant to say such a thing. Natalie looked at him for a moment and then said, Nobody is. She pulled herself to her feet and held out her arms. Can I let it go? It was against protocol. Anton scanned the field as if Professor Shaw might pop up from behind the stone wall, finger wagging. The rain had reached them, soaking Natalie's hair against her scalp, tapping on the tiny yellow tent. I'll do it properly, she said. I promise I'll do exactly what you tell me to do. I'd like it to be part of your experiment, to be the one who set this one off to collect its data. She smiled, and Anton found himself smiling back, found himself holding the balloon out towards her. Her hands butted up against his as she took hold of it. We have to wait until 1400 exactly, Anton said. Natalie nodded and then looked at him expectantly. The rain intensified, drumming an unsteady rhythm on the balloon's surface. You won't let it go until 1400, Anton said. I promise, she whispered. Anton slowly released his grip, his hand sliding over the wet plastic. He took a small step backwards. Natalie held the balloon confidently. 1 more minute, Anton said, and then lift your arms, hold it steady, and let it go. At 1400, Natalie did as he instructed. The balloon hesitated for a moment, then caught the breeze and was up and away, rocking from side to side as it rose. Natalie stood with her head tipped back, watching it. They put cameras on some of them, he told her. He'd seen footage from one once, starting with blurred images of the ground, of a man's face, of nearby trees, and then rising quickly, a set of fields, a small town, the view widening and broadening to take in mountains, a lake, clouds, and then up and up and up. The earth getting smaller and less detailed, the sun brighter and fiercer, until you could see the curvature of the earth, the clouds like scrunched tissues scattered across it. We'd be in the pictures, she said. There's no camera on that one. Yes, but imagine if it could see us, she said, still looking up. Natalie and Anton standing on a hill in Wales. Getting smaller and smaller, Anton said. Like dolls. Like ants. Until we disappear, Natalie said. Anton swallowed. Until we disappear. Thank you.